The shocking truth has finally been revealed, and it's more scandalous than anyone could have imagined. Erica's lawyer has just dropped a bombshell that has sent shockwaves through the entire reality TV world. Mendeecees, the once-adored reality star, has been exposed for tampering with DNA test results. And now, the world wants answers. Was the fatherhood drama all a lie? Was the man who claimed to be the father of Erica's child hiding the truth for his own gain? As the evidence starts to surface, accusations are flying and emotions are running high. The stakes have never been higher, and this revelation threatens to destroy everything Mendeecees has worked for. How far will he go to cover up his lies, and what will happen to his reputation, his family, and his future in the public eye? Fans are left stunned, wondering how they could have been so blind. What will Erica do next, now that her lawyer has exposed this devastating truth? Will Mendeecees come clean, or will he continue to fight to protect his secrets? This isn't just another scandal, this is a game changer that could tear apart the very fabric of their world. Stay tuned, because the truth is finally coming to light, and it's more explosive than anyone could have ever anticipated. The world was still reeling from the revelation, and the scandal was nowhere near over. Mendeecees had always been known as the charismatic, charming star of reality TV, the man who had overcome so much, from his tumultuous past to his rise in the public eye. But now, the public was questioning everything. Fans who had admired him for his resilience were left shaking their heads in disbelief as Erica's lawyer revealed the truth that no one saw coming. Mendeecees had been faking DNA test results. It started with a simple legal battle over paternity. Erica, after years of uncertainty, decided to seek the truth about her child's biological father, and what followed was a whirlwind of accusations, secrets, and betrayals. Mendeecees, who had long maintained that he was the father, suddenly found himself on the defensive as Erica's lawyer uncovered shocking new evidence. The documents were carefully guarded, but the moment they hit the public domain, it was clear that something was horribly wrong. A routine DNA test had been manipulated, tampered with, showing results that weren't just inaccurate, but fabricated. Mendeecees, it seemed, had altered the results to avoid the truth from being exposed. "I did everything for the family," Mendeecees said, as if justifying his actions, but his voice lacked the conviction it once had. "I was trying to protect them, protect her. I didn't want to ruin everything we had built." But Erica's lawyer wasn't buying it, and neither was the world. "You've built your empire on lies," Erica's lawyer had fired back in a statement. "And now, the truth is finally catching up with you. No one can escape the truth forever, Mendeecees. Not even you." The fallout from the revelation was immediate. Fans were furious, and social media erupted in a frenzy of posts, hashtags, and reactions. Mendeecees Lied trended for days, as people took sides, some defending the reality star, while others denounced him for the betrayal. It wasn't just the fans who were divided. The families involved, Erica's and Mendeecees, were in chaos. Erica, who had always been a calm and collected figure, was now facing a whirlwind of emotions. The shock of the truth hit her like a ton of bricks. She had loved Mendeecees, trusted him with everything, and believed in the family they had created. But now, everything felt like a lie. The love she had once felt for him had turned to anger and resentment. "I gave him everything," Erica said, her voice shaking with emotion. "I gave him my trust, my heart, and this is how he repays me, by lying about my child, our child." The anger in her words was palpable, and she wasn't alone. Her friends, family, and even former allies turned their backs on Mendeecees. The Yilpalm public turned on him like a pack of wolves circling their prey. Everyone who had ever supported him now felt betrayed, and it seemed like there was no way out. Mendeecees, still trying to maintain his composure, was no longer the confident man he had once been. He had always been the one in control, the one calling the shots, but now the tables had turned. The lies were catching up with him, and he couldn't deny the truth anymore. The truth that he had tried so desperately to hide was now out in the open, and it was more devastating than he had ever imagined. "I didn't want to hurt her," Mendeecees confessed in an interview, his voice strained and full of regret. "I thought I could fix it. I thought I could make it go away. But now I realize I can't. I can't fix what I've broken." The gravity of his words didn't seem to have much impact. People had already made up their minds, and the damage was done. The world wasn't just questioning Mendeecees' actions, they were questioning his character, his integrity, and his future. Could he ever bounce back from something like this? Could he ever regain the trust of the people who had once supported him? Meanwhile, Erica's lawyer was not backing down. The legal battle had only just begun, and the lawyer had one goal in mind: justice. Erica had suffered enough, and now it was time for Mendeecees to face the consequences of his actions. The manipulation of a DNA test wasn't just a betrayal of Erica, it was a betrayal of the truth, a lie that had been perpetuated for far too long. Mendeecees will answer for what he's done. Erica's lawyer declared in a press conference, "We will not let this go. The truth will come out, and he will be held accountable for his lies." But what was the truth? How deep did Mendeecees' deception go? The more Erica's lawyer uncovered, the more twisted the story became. It wasn't just about a single test result. There were other elements at play, other secrets waiting to be exposed. It seemed like the more they dug, the more skeletons they found in Mendeecees' closet. The legal documents were clear. Mendeecees had gone to extreme lengths to alter the test results, using a network of contacts to ensure the results would match the narrative he had created. And it wasn't just the test itself that had been altered. Mendeecees had gone as far as to fabricate evidence, using fake documents to make it seem like he was the father. He had lied to Erica, to his family, and to his fans, all in the name of protecting an image he had worked so hard to create. But as the layers of deception were peeled away, Mendeecees was left with nothing but the cold reality of his actions. He had created a mess of lies, and now there was no way out. His career, his family, and his reputation, all of it was on the line. The man who had once been the king of reality. TV was now nothing more than a shell of his former self, trying to salvage whatever was left of his life. And for Erica, the pain was still fresh. She had trusted him, and he had betrayed her in the most profound way possible. The trust they had, built over the years, the bond they had shared, had all been destroyed in a moment. There was no going back now. The damage had been done, and there was no way to undo the hurt that had been caused. For Erica, it was clear that this battle wasn't just about the paternity of her child, it was about reclaiming her life. The lies that had been woven into her reality were now unraveling, and it was time to take control of her narrative. Mendeecees may have thought he could get away with it, but Erica was determined to ensure that the truth would prevail. The legal drama was far from over, and the twists and turns were only just beginning. But one thing was certain: the public spectacle of Mendeecees' lies was far from finished. The truth had come to light, and there was no turning back. The guilt hit Mendeecees like a freight train. He had always prided himself on being a family man, on being someone his loved ones could count on. But now, everything he had worked so hard for seemed to be falling apart. His mother, who had always been his rock, was now disappointed in him. And the weight of her disappointment was more crushing than anything else. Mendeecees tried to explain, but there were no words that could undo the damage. "I never meant for it to go this far," he said, his voice barely above a whisper. "I thought I could fix it, that I could keep things together. But now I've ruined everything." But his mother wasn't buying it. "You're a grown man. Mendeecees, you made this mess, and now you have to deal with the consequences. I don't know if I can stand by you after this." The pain of hearing those words from his mother was more excruciating than anything else. Mendeecees had always prided himself on being a good son, a good partner, a good father. But now, his actions were threatening to strip him of everything he had ever worked for. Meanwhile, Erica was struggling to keep it together. She had been through so much in her life: betrayal, heartache, and loss. But this was different. This wasn't just a betrayal of trust. It was a betrayal of everything she had believed in. The man she had loved, the man she had trusted with her heart and her family, had lied to her. And now, the consequences were unfolding in front of her eyes. The legal battle was heating up. Erica's lawyer had been relentless, digging into every detail of Mendeecees' actions. The evidence of the tampered DNA test was damning, and it was clear that Mendeecees was in deeper trouble than anyone had initially realized. But Erica wasn't interested in vengeance. She wanted the truth. She wanted justice, not just for her, but for her child. "I need to do what's best for my child," Erica said during a tearful conversation with her lawyer. I can't let Mendeecees' lies ruin everything we've worked for. He needs to take responsibility for what he's done." Her lawyer, understanding the gravity of the situation, nodded in agreement. "We will make sure the truth comes to light. Erica, you've been through enough, and it's time for him to face the consequences of his actions." But as Erica prepared for the next stage of the legal battle, she was forced to confront a harsh reality. This wasn't just a fight for the truth, it was a fight for her future. If Mendeecees was convicted of tampering with the DNA test, it would have far-reaching consequences. His career, his freedom, and his relationship with Erica would all be at risk. The fallout would be devastating, not just for him, but for everyone involved. For the first time, Mendeecees began to realize the full extent of what he had done. He had spent so much time trying to protect his own image, trying to maintain the facade of a perfect family, that he had failed to see the bigger picture. He had lied to the woman he loved, and now he was paying the price. But it wasn't just Erica who was hurt. It was everyone who had ever trusted him. His friends, his family, his fans, they were all now questioning his integrity. In a desperate attempt to salvage what was left of his life, Mendeecees reached out to Erica. He knew. She was hurt, angry, and confused, but he still hoped there might be a way to fix things. He called her, his voice shaky as he spoke. "Erica, I know I messed up. I know I hurt you, and I can't undo what I've done. But please, I'm begging you, let me make it right. I want to fix this, for you, for us, for the future." But Erica wasn't ready to forgive him. "You can't fix this, Mendeecees. The damage has been done," she replied, her voice cold. "You lied to me. You lied to everyone. How do you expect me to trust you again?" The silence between them was deafening. Mendeecees had no words left, no excuses. The damage was too deep, and there was no way to go back. Meanwhile, the public's perception of Mendeecees was shifting. The once beloved reality star was now the subject of scorn and ridicule. The tabloids were having a field day, plastering his face across their front pages with headlines like "Mendeecees caught lying," "DNA test scandal exposed," and "The truth about Mendeecees' paternity lie." The media frenzy was relentless, and Mendeecees couldn't escape it. The public's outrage was palpable, and for the first time, Mendeecees felt like he was truly alone. He had built his career on his charm, his image, and his family values. But now, all of that was crumbling. His fans, who had once supported him through thick and thin, were now turning their backs on him. The hashtag #Mendeecees lied trended for days, and every new post or comment seemed to pile on the pressure. But the legal battle was far from over. As Erica and her lawyer prepared to take the next steps, they knew the stakes were high. They had the evidence, the testimony, and the public support behind them. But for Mendeecees, the future was uncertain. Would he face the consequences of his actions, or would he find a way to escape the fallout? With the truth out in the open and the world watching, one thing was certain: Mendeecees' life had been forever changed. The lies he had told, the people he had hurt, and the consequences of his actions were all now impossible to ignore. And as the drama continued to unfold, it was clear that no one, not even Mendeecees, could escape the truth. The weeks after the bombshell revelation seemed like a blur. The media frenzy surrounding Mendeecees and Erica showed no signs of slowing down, and every moment felt like a battle. As Mendeecees' world continued to spiral, the repercussions of his lies were hitting harder than ever. The reality star, once considered an untouchable icon in the entertainment world, now found himself facing not only legal consequences, but a shattered reputation that might never heal. But it wasn't just about the public anymore. The scandal had taken its toll on his personal life, and the stakes were much higher. In private, Mendeecees' thoughts were consumed by one question: was there any way to fix this? Could he ever rebuild the trust he had broken? Or was it too late? His phone buzzed with a call from his lawyer. Mendeecees stared at the screen, feeling his heart race. This wasn't just a typical call. It was the moment that would determine his fate. "Hello?" he answered, trying to sound composed. "Mendeecees, we need to talk about the upcoming court date," his lawyer said, his tone grave. "The evidence is stacked against you, and we need to be prepared for the worst. I know you've been trying to keep a low profile, but we have to face the reality of this situation. The DNA test tampering, the false documents, it's all on the record. You're looking at serious charges. The weight of those words hit Mendeecees like a punch to the gut. Serious charges, jail time. His life, everything he had worked for, was now at risk. "What can I do?" he asked, his voice cracking. "How do I make this right?" His lawyer sighed, the sound thick with frustration. "The only thing left to do is face the truth, Mendeecees. There's no other way around it. The public knows, Erica knows, and if you continue to deny it, the consequences will only get worse." It wasn't the answer Mendeecees wanted to hear, but it was the truth. His lawyer was right. The lies he had told had snowballed, and now there was no escaping them. The truth was out there for everyone to see, and the consequences of his actions were catching up with him. As the days ticked by, Mendeecees found himself spiraling further into a state of panic and confusion. The guilt weighed heavily on his shoulders, and the pain of what he had done to Erica was unbearable. How could he have been so blind? How could he have thought that lying about something so important would have no consequences? But Erica wasn't just a victim in all of this. She was a woman with her own voice, her own pain, and her own determination. While Mendeecees stewed in his guilt, Erica was making moves of her own. She was no longer the woman who had kept silent, the woman who had tried to protect Mendeecees from the truth. Now, she was ready to fight back. She called a press conference to address the situation, and the world tuned in, waiting to hear what she had to say. Standing in front of the cameras, her eyes cold with resolve, Erica began to speak. "I've been quiet long enough," she said, her voice steady and strong. "For too long, I let Mendeecees dictate the narrative of our lives, but Mendeecees wasn't going to give up without a fight. With the walls closing in, he called Erica, desperate to salvage what was left of their relationship. "I don't know what to say, Erica," he confessed, his voice thick with emotion. "I've made mistakes, and I know I've hurt you. But please, can't we fix this? Can't we figure out a way to move forward? I love you." Erica, who had been listening quietly, shook her head, her heart hardening. "You think you can just fix this with a phone call? After everything you've done, Mendeecees? After all the lies? I don't even know who you are anymore." The bitterness in her voice was evident. She had given him everything, trusted him with her heart, and he had betrayed her in the most fundamental way. How could she ever forgive him? How could she ever trust him again? The thought of it made her feel sick. "I don't know how to fix this, Erica," Mendeecees continued, his voice filled with regret. "But I'm willing to do whatever it takes to make it right. I'll face the consequences. I'll face the truth. I just need you to give me a chance." But Erica wasn't ready to forgive him. Not yet. "I don't know if I can ever forgive you, Mendeecees. What you did wasn't just a mistake, it was a betrayal. And now you have to deal with the consequences of that. I'm not going to be your scapegoat anymore." With that, she hung up, her heart pounding in her chest. The decision was final. She couldn't go back to a man who had lied to her so effortlessly, so coldly. The trust they had once shared was gone, and the future they had imagined together was now a distant memory. As the legal battle heated up, Mendeecees was left to face the harsh reality of his situation. The DNA test tampering charges were serious, and the potential for jail time was growing. His career was in shambles, his reputation tarnished, and his personal life was in ruins. What had once been a fairy tale had turned into a nightmare, and Mendeecees was left to pick up the pieces. And for Erica, the road ahead was still unclear. She had taken control of her life, but the pain of betrayal was deep. The scars would take time to heal, and the trust she once had in Mendeecees might never be restored. But one thing was certain, she wasn't going to let his lies define her anymore. She was moving forward, stronger and more determined than ever. The world was watching, waiting for the next chapter of this dramatic saga to unfold. Would Mendeecees face the consequences of his actions, or would he find a way to escape? Could Erica ever forgive him, or had the damage been done? Only time would tell, but one thing was for sure, the drama was far from over. As Mendeecees' legal battles dragged on, the media circus continued to grow. Every update, every court appearance was met with flashing cameras and relentless speculation. The whispers in the entertainment world grew louder. Would Mendeecees face jail time, or would he find a way to wriggle out of this scandal with a plea deal, a slap on the wrist? For the first time in his career, he was fighting an enemy more powerful than public opinion or the tabloids: the truth. Meanwhile, Erica, though quiet in the media, was no less determined to fight for what was right. She had been through too, much to back down now. The betrayal was still raw, but it was her future, her child's future, that mattered most. And with Mendeecees' actions hanging over them, the decision to seek justice became even clearer. She could no longer allow herself to be a passive figure in the drama of her own life. Erica had to fight for her dignity, her peace of mind, and for the respect that had been stripped away by the lies. Late one evening, Erica sat in her living room, the weight of everything bearing down on her. The phone buzzed. It was a text from her lawyer. Urgent update, they're pushing for a deal. The message sent a shiver down her spine. It was the moment she had been dreading. Mendeecees was trying to salvage what was left of his career, his life. And the truth, as always, was being sacrificed. Her lawyer had informed her that Mendeecees was negotiating a plea deal, attempting to minimize the fallout to avoid jail time. The proposition was tempting for him. A plea deal meant less public scrutiny, fewer consequences for his actions. But for Erica, it felt like another betrayal. She knew, deep down, that no deal would undo the harm he had caused. There was no escaping the truth now. Mendeecees had lied, manipulated, and deceived everyone. A deal wouldn't fix that. What are we really doing here? Erica whispered to herself, the weight of the situation pressing heavily on her chest. I'm not going to let him get away with this. Not this time. Her resolve was set. She needed to keep pushing for justice. The truth was already out there, and the people who had followed their story for years deserved to see the real Mendeecees. Not the one who had carefully curated his public persona, but the man who had shattered trust, broken hearts, and tried to cover it all up with lies. But Mendeecees wasn't ready to give up. He continued to put up a brave front, clinging to the idea that he could somehow fix things. In private, however, it was clear he was struggling. Every conversation he had with his family or close friends felt like a battle. He knew he had messed up, but he couldn't bring himself to accept the full weight of the consequences. Instead, he focused on what he could control, trying to salvage his career piece by piece. One night, in a private conversation with his best friend, Mendeecees let his guard down. I don't know if I can do this anymore, he admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. It feels like everything I've worked for is slipping away. My career, my family, my future, everything's falling apart. I've lied, and now it feels like there's no coming back from it. His friend, who had always been a sounding board for Mendeecees, was silent for a moment. Man, you've always been the one to bounce back, but this is different. You've hurt a lot of people, including yourself. You've got to own up to what you did. You can't fix it until you do. Mendeecees stared into the distance, his mind racing. His friend's words stung, but they were the truth. He had hurt so many people, Erica, his family, even the fans who had once looked up to him. But the reality of it all was too much for him to bear. He had spent so much of his life avoiding pain and responsibility, and now it was coming for him in full force. As the days passed, the legal situation became even more complicated. Erica's lawyer had filed a motion to have the case brought to trial, refusing to entertain any more plea deals. They wanted Mendeecees to face the consequences of his actions, to hold him accountable for what he had done to Erica. But Mendeecees' team was working overtime to prevent that from happening. His legal team pushed for a settlement, an arrangement. That would allow him to avoid prison time and keep his reputation intact. The problem, though, was that it wasn't just Erica who was hurt by Mendeecees' actions. The truth had shaken the foundations of their entire family, with relationships splintering under the weight of the betrayal. Mendeecees' own mother, who had always been his biggest supporter, now found herself questioning everything. She loved him, but could she still stand by him after all of this? I don't know if I can be proud of you anymore, Mendeecees, she told him in a phone call one evening. Her voice was filled with a mixture of sadness and disbelief. You've lost. Your way. I've always believed in you, but now, I don't know who you are anymore. Mendeecees closed his eyes, the pain of his mother's words hitting him harder than anything else. I'm sorry, Mom. I didn't mean for it to happen like this. I thought I could keep it under control. I thought I could fix it. But his mother wasn't having it. You can't fix everything with lies. You need to face the truth. You've hurt a lot of people, and it's time to take responsibility for that. And that was when it hit Mendeecees. His mother was right. No more. running. No more hiding. He couldn't keep pretending that everything was fine, that his actions hadn't had devastating consequences. The consequences were the day of the trial finally arrived, and the tension in the courtroom was palpable. Cameras flashed from every angle, capturing every detail of the scene. The media had camped outside for hours, eager for any scraps of information they could get their hands on. It was as if the entire world was waiting to see how this chapter of Mendeecees' life would unfold. Would he take responsibility for his actions, or would he try to weasel his way out with another excuse? Inside the courtroom, Erica sat poised and determined, her legal team surrounding her. She had come a long way from the woman who had been blind to the lies Mendeecees had told. Now, she was a woman on a mission, ready to face the truth. No matter how painful it was. The betrayal was still fresh, but she had found her strength. This was not just about her. This was about protecting her family, about holding Mendeecees accountable for his actions. Mendeecees entered the courtroom, his usual swagger replaced with a sense of nervous tension. His once confident posture had been replaced with a slumped demeanor as he walked to his seat. His eyes briefly met Erica's, but she didn't flinch. Her gaze was cold, hard, and unwavering. The person he had once called his partner was no longer in front of him. She had become someone else, someone stronger, someone determined to stand tall in the face of the destruction he had caused. The proceedings began, and the courtroom fell into a hushed silence as the judge took her seat. The air was thick with anticipation. Erica's lawyer stood up first, delivering an opening statement that left the room stunned. Mendeecees has lied. He has manipulated the truth and used his influence to deceive everyone, including the woman he claimed to love. This is not just a matter of a paternity test. This is a matter of trust, betrayal, and the lengths one man went to in order to maintain his image and avoid responsibility, the lawyer said, her voice sharp and full of conviction. We are here today to ensure that Mendeecees answers for the harm he has caused, and we will make sure that he is held accountable for his actions. Mendeecees' defense team quickly rose to counter, attempting to downplay the severity of the situation. But the evidence was irrefutable. The DNA test results were tampered with, and it wasn't just a simple mistake or misunderstanding. It was a deliberate act designed to protect Mendeecees from the truth. There was no denying that. As the trial unfolded, the courtroom became a battleground of words and emotions. Mendeecees' defense team tried to paint him as a victim, someone who had been pushed into a corner by circumstances beyond his control. They tried to paint Erica as someone who had been too eager to expose him, too quick to judge. But it was clear to everyone that the truth had a different story to tell. During cross-examination, Erica's lawyer expertly deconstructed every lie Mendeecees had told. Every piece of evidence they presented only further confirmed that Mendeecees had manipulated the situation for his own gain. The more the defense tried to deflect, the clearer it became that there was no way to avoid the truth. Mendeecees had been caught red-handed, and there was no way to escape the consequences. As the trial continued, Mendeecees sat in silence, his face contorted with frustration. His thoughts were a jumbled mess. He knew that Erica was right. He had lied. He had betrayed her. But the weight of it all was suffocating. The life he had built, his career, his reputation, everything was crumbling before him. He couldn't deny the guilt gnawing at him, the shame, the realization that everything he had worked for might be lost because of his own actions. And then, in a moment that no one saw coming, Mendeecees finally spoke. "I've made mistakes," he said, his voice hoarse. "I lied. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I thought I could keep everything together. I was wrong. I was scared, but I can't hide from it anymore." The courtroom fell into a stunned silence. Everyone, from the judge to the spectators, held their breath. Mendeecees had finally admitted the truth, but was it enough to save him? Could this last-ditch effort to come clean erase the damage he had done? Erica, who had been quietly watching him from across the room, didn't flinch. She had heard the words, but they didn't change anything. She had been hurt too deeply. She had been betrayed too many times. This apology, this moment of honesty, was too little, too late. "You can't fix this, Mendeecees," Erica said, her voice steady, but filled with a quiet strength. "You lied to me, you lied to our family, and now you have to face the consequences of your actions. There is no going back." The emotion in her words was palpable. She had been through too much. She had fought for her family, for her child, and now it was time to stand firm. The trust that had been broken was irreparable, and she knew that. No amount of apologies could fix what had been shattered, but as the trial continued and Mendeecees' fate hung in the balance, there was still one thing left to consider. Would the court see Mendeecees' admission of guilt as enough to mitigate the consequences, or would his actions be judged harshly by the law? The legal battle was far from over, and Erica's lawyer was determined to make sure that Mendeecees didn't escape the full weight of his lies. The emotional toll was beginning to take its toll on everyone involved. Mendeecees was struggling to cope with the reality of his actions, and the guilt that weighed on him was suffocating. But for Erica, this wasn't just about legal justice. It was about emotional healing. She wasn't just fighting for a conviction. She was fighting for herself, for her family, and for the future she had always dreamed of. And so, the trial pressed on, the drama unfolding with each passing day. Mendeecees was faced with the harsh reality of his lies, and Erica was left to navigate the painful aftermath. The consequences of his actions were clear. His career, his family, and his future all hung in the balance. The world was watching, waiting to see how it would all unfold. But the question remained, could Mendeecees truly redeem himself? Could Erica ever forgive him? Or was this the end of the road for them both? The story wasn't over yet. And as the trial continued, so did the battle for truth, redemption, and justice. Would Mendeecees face the music and pay the price for his actions? Or would he continue to fight, hoping for a way out? Only time would tell, but one thing was certain. The drama was far from over. The trial had entered its final phase, and the tension in the courtroom was now unbearable. With each passing day, Mendeecees' fate seemed to hang more precariously in the balance. The defense had tried everything, every legal trick in the book, but there was one thing they couldn't fight: the truth. It was like a weight that Mendeecees couldn't escape, pressing down on him as the trial moved toward its conclusion. Erica had been steadfast, her emotions now tempered by a quiet resolve. The anger that had initially burned so brightly was now replaced by something else: clarity. She knew what needed to be done, and she was ready to face the reality of the situation, no matter how painful it was. The truth had been exposed. Now, there was only one thing left to do: ensure that Mendeecees faced the consequences of his actions. "I want justice," Erica had told her lawyer. Her voice was quiet, but there was a fierce determination in her words. "I don't care what it costs. I don't care how hard it is. I need him to be held accountable for what he did." Her lawyer, who had been working tirelessly throughout the case, gave a nod of approval. "We'll make sure that happens. The court has seen the evidence. We've done everything we can." But as the defense continued to stall and delay, Mendeecees' lawyer brought forth an unexpected twist. At the last minute, they proposed a settlement, one that would allow Mendeecees to avoid prison time and avoid the full wrath of the law. The deal would involve a hefty fine and probation, but it would spare him from serving any jail time. This new turn of events sent shockwaves through the courtroom. The proposition was tempting, and it left many wondering whether the judge would go along with it. For Mendeecees, it was a chance to escape the worst of the consequences, a chance to walk away from the scandal without facing years behind bars. But for Erica, this wasn't just about avoiding prison time. This was about making sure Mendeecees faced the full weight of what he had done. "You can't just buy your way out of this," Erica's lawyer shot back. "This isn't about money. This is about trust. This is about holding Mendeecees accountable for tampering with the DNA test and lying to Erica, lying to her family, and lying to the public." The debate raged on, but the reality of the situation was undeniable. Mendeecees' reputation was shattered. His career, once built on his image as a loving father and loyal partner, was now in ruins. The scandal had hit him like a sledgehammer, and there was no escaping the fallout. Whether he faced jail time or a lighter sentence, the damage had been done. His credibility was gone, and the public was no longer buying the persona he had worked so hard to create. But what about Erica? As the court proceedings continued, Erica found herself caught between two conflicting emotions. On one hand, she was furious at Mendeecees for what he had done, the lies he had told, and the way he had manipulated everything around them. She had trusted him, and he had betrayed her in the worst way. On the other hand, she felt a deep sense of sadness. This wasn't just a legal battle, It was the death of something she had once believed in. The family they had tried to build was now in shambles, and Erica had to face the reality that nothing would ever be the same. "I can't keep doing this," Erica admitted in a quiet moment with her best friend. "I've tried to fix things. I've tried to make it work. But he lied to me, lied about something so important. And now it's all just broken." Her friend nodded sympathetically. "It's okay, Erica. You're not the one who broke it. He did this. You're just trying to pick up the pieces." But picking up the pieces wasn't going to be easy. The wounds that Mendeecees had inflicted ran deep, and the road ahead was uncertain. Would Erica ever trust him again? Could she ever forgive him for the betrayal, for the lies, for the pain he had caused? The more she thought about it, the more she realized that the answer wasn't clear. The emotional scars from this scandal weren't something that could be healed overnight, and they weren't something that Mendeecees' apology could erase. "I thought he was the one," Erica whispered to herself. "But now I don't even recognize him anymore." And it wasn't just the betrayal that hurt. It was the realization that the person she had loved, the person she had fought for, had never been fully honest with her. Mendeecees had put on a mask, a facade, and Erica had fallen for it. Now, the truth was out, and the man behind the mask was someone she didn't even recognize. The tension in the courtroom was building to a fever pitch as closing arguments were made. The prosecution had painted a damning picture of Mendeecees' actions, and Erica's lawyer had presented a compelling case for why he needed to face the full consequences of his actions. On the other side, Mendeecees' defense team tried to spin the narrative, portraying him as a man who made a mistake, someone who had been trying to protect his family. But the evidence was overwhelming, and the jury wasn't buying the defense's narrative. As the judge deliberated, Erica sat with her hands folded, staring at the front of the courtroom. The moments felt like an eternity. Would Mendeecees be held accountable, or would he escape with a light sentence? The stakes had never been higher. Finally, the verdict was read. "Mendeecees, you are hereby sentenced to 5 years of probation, a substantial fine, and mandatory community service," the judge announced, her voice steady and firm. "However, you will not be serving time in prison due to the nature of your cooperation and the circumstances surrounding the case. Let this serve as a reminder that the truth is always uncovered in the end." A collective gasp swept through the courtroom.